Good morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. We'll talk about politicians briefly, very briefly. We don't want to place this bunch of people out in front with placards and putting a barricade up so you and I can't go to work.
It's quite a popular activity.
Very popular. So, in any event, we had an election yesterday, and so I guess we would say kudos to the winners, and thank you for running. To those who did not win, we will not call them losers because they are not losers in any sense of the word. So they made themselves available to the populace, and the populace was so enamored of this wonderful opportunity to take part in their city government that they turned out 22% en masse. To you people out there, that's disgusting. You know, that's a big soapbox I have, Mike. Voting, the one right that you and I are entitled to, and that's a real privilege in this country. And I have dedicated my 93 years. Well, let's see, you could vote at 21 when I was a kid. You had 18, you still didn't know anything. So you can say I've been voting for some 70 years at every election, including dog catcher. I cannot understand the apathy that is shown. Here we have an election for the mayor of our community, and 22% showed up. So
and the alderman.
Yeah, that's just. And we had a couple of aldermanic races. So congratulations to those winners too. So, by the way, we would welcome Mrs. Busby back in her usual seat. Is the food any better at the Betty Ford Clinic?
It's improved considerably over last year, and Bill has taken it upon himself to circulate a petition, so be watching it when it's in your area, and it's to dump Judy, it's called, because he had such a wonderful time, needless to say, with Danny Tackett. So
yes,
watch
did a
for the
good job.
petition, and you can sign on that Danny should replace me eternally ad infinitum.
He's not nearly as pretty as you are. He does a good job, but the pulchritude side, he's sadly lacking there. So we'll just keep you, Judith.
Well, if feminine pulchritude would be his short straw.
So in any event, we're happy to have you back, and we hope you had a good stay. And you clean up your act. You won't have to go back next year.
I didn't think about that. I'll have to work on that.
All right, let's get down to some serious business. We have a subject near and dear to the old feller's heart this morning, and as much as I have considerable experience serving in that capacity. So why don't you introduce our graduate from Northwestern University, whom we're very proud, hometown boy.
Made good.
He's done real good. He done good.
You need that.
So why don't you introduce Michael?
Yes, Mike Higgins is the chairman of the Charitable Trust of Lincoln, which is one of the committees at the Elks here in Lincoln. And it used to be called the Elks Crippled Children's Trust. And it's been in existence for a very long time, which we'll be addressing. And it has served many, many, many young people. In fact, it's still active at the hospital, if I'm not mistaken, Mike.
Yeah, we still have, they were able to get Dr. Borowicki to be the presiding
he's great.
physician at the clinics again, and with the help of the State of Illinois Children's Trust. They also
The Elks State of Illinois Children's Trust.
Yes,
it's not our sovereign
No, it's
state.
not the sovereign state of Illinois.
Okay.
It's the...
Want to make that abundantly
Yeah, we need
clear.
to kind of talk about that just very briefly. All fraternal orders seem to have a specific benefactor or a beneficiary of their efforts. The Moose have one, the Eagles have another, and down through the years, and the Masonic orders have theirs. Of course, we're all familiar with the shrine work that crippled children's. Shouldn't have said that.
Why?
That's politically incorrect. But that's the way it is. Down through the years, the Lincoln Lodge number 914 Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks have had a philanthropy in serving handicapped, see, I cleaned up my act there, youngsters in the community. And I remember, and this is why I said in the opening, this is a subject near and dear to my heart. My father served in that committee for years, and it was a trio: Jack Gordon and Albert Arnold, who was the secretary of the lodge at the time, and Herman Gossett. And they just ran that thing. It was like a smooth ship. And the glue that held it all together was our county nurse, Irma Potter. A sainted soul if I ever knew one. She really did a tremendous amount of in Logan County, not only in that capacity, but in her capacity as a county nurse. And we had an orthopedics man come from Peoria, and I can tell you his name is Dr. Hugh Cooper, and Lord knows he must be gone many, many moons. But in any event, Mrs. Higgins would bring her child in and who had a problem and be treated, and everything was taken care of. And Irma would call me, and a particular patient needed something, and she'd say, George so-and-so needs, I would say to her, Mrs. Potter, you don't have to call me to get permission to do that. If the child needs it, you just take care of it, and we'll take care of the expense. You just get it for the child. But every time she'd call and ask permission to get something, and she was that kind of a lady. So that in those days, in the unlearned days, we called it the Crippled Children's Trust, and in fact, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And it evolved then into in later years. I became chairman of that trust and served many, many years. And it's one of the great things that I enjoyed in my association with Elkdom is serving in that capacity. So we're glad to have Mike. This is a subject near and dear to my heart, and we do a lot of good, have done a lot of good down through many, many years. My first acquaintance with it was sometime in the 30s when I knew my father was on that committee. I didn't know what the heck the committee was at that time, but anyway, that goes back that far. Judith Kay.
And how far back does it go, historically speaking, Mike?
It goes back
Just say long way.
a long way.
Thank you. And now moving
If
right
Bill
along.
remembers it when he was a youngster, it goes back a long way.
Well, because Bill is over 29 now. His last
Just a day or
birthday, he passed it.
A day or two.
He did. You know, one of the first things we heard when we moved here after my grandson was born, our friend, God love him, said, you know, you should take him to the Elks because he was towing in a little bit. And of course, I didn't know anything about the Elks, really. And I was so glad to hear that they provide this service, and at no charge to those who are accepted once they've seen the doctor.
Right. They have a quarterly clinic. The next one is coming up the 4th of April. And there you can call. I'll give the number later. You can call and make a reservation that starts at 1 o'clock usually. And it's they'll meet you in the lobby of Abraham Lincoln Memorial Hospital. And then the examination takes place over in the physical therapy area. But that's the starting gate, and then beyond that, the trust will provide whatever. Like there's someone coming in that's going to need a special wheelchair because of brittle bone disease. But until they're evaluated and we know exactly what kind of wheelchair we'll do the best for them, we can't do anything because we don't want to get them something that's not going to work.
Right. Now, when you make reference in the good old days to crippled children, they'd obviously have to be of an age where they are ambulatory, or you wouldn't know.
Right.
So what are the ages when you call them children? children start when, and they cease being a child at what age?
Well, generally through 18 to 21, I believe. But when the name of the trust expanded to the Elks Charitable Trust, our scope expanded as to what we were able to do. Before we were limited in just providing care for children, and now we do more than that. We've provided some money. We provided a couple of rooms for the new hospital, and we provided some money for the walking path behind the Oasis for senior citizens.
Wow, that's nice.
And we also contribute to the local food pantries at least once a year.
That's
if not more.
important.
So it's related to children, but it's not specifically. Now, the clinics themselves are for children, but then we also contribute to the book bag program that one of the local sororities doesn't come to mind right now, but that they run every year, and the summer reading program at the library.
Oh, good.
So it's moved beyond the strictly orthopedic medical care to more of a whole
philanthropic.
The scope has changed significantly
Yes.
from my day, and that's a very, very good thing, because you're making a definitive impact on a lot of other areas in our community.
Right.
The fact that I remember, Michael, that we would have youngsters, I mean, like real small youngsters that had some concerns, and it wasn't anything unusual to see them in a cast, where in those days, where they had their little legs spread apart, and then they were in a cast, and they had a little bar between their ankles and so forth, which must have been a terrible thing. But the treatment at the end solved the problem.
Right.
And you meet how often, Michael, your committee?
We try to meet at least every other month at the most. Monthly's better, but this time of year, half of our committee is in Florida.
Yeah.
Half of the town is in Florida.
Maybe we better have an inventory of the assets.
Yeah, he's got kind of free reign right now.
Did you ever dream when you were a student at Northwestern that you'd ever be sitting here in a studio in Lincoln, Illinois, talking on the radio about your experiences working with a really wonderful community activity? Tell us who else is on the committee with you.
Well, Marcia Warner this year is the president, and Merlin Horath is the secretary. I'm the treasurer, and then Bill Marcotte and Dave Campbell. So there's 5 of us on the committee.
Nebulous group, if I ever heard of them.
But they have fun. Years ago when I was a kid, my friend was Molly Lee, and her parents were Selma and Odin, and they lived down around the way. And Molly was born in Canada, in the Shrine Hospital there. She had what they used to call displaced hips. Goodness knows what they call it today. She'd had 7 operations as a little girl. And now, when a baby is born with this issue, they double diaper them. I don't know how they do it with the paper diapers, but when my kids were little, they'd use the cloth diapers and double diaper them to keep their legs apart, and then because they're growing and forming so quickly, that would help. And I'm sure your having Dr. Borowicki gives you access to all of the latest treatments, so that he can say, well, I think in your case we ought to try a little bit of this.
Right.
Because he's a gem.
Yes, he is.
He really is.
Now, who makes decisions, the doctor or his staff, to recommend some sort of prosthesis for a youngster? And then they report to you, and you see that it's taken care of. They acquire it, and you pay for it.
Yes. Yeah, that's usually the way it works, whether it be a wheelchair, prosthetic device. It might be we've gotten wheelchair accessible picnic tables for a couple of the schools.
Well,
Really?
Or it could be iPads that are tailored for the developmentally disabled, so they can do some work on their iPads. But whatever they prescribe is what we will provide.
yeah, hey, Forrest Gump couldn't have said that better. Let's talk about fundraising. In the old, there again, the old fellas want to wax,
Wax eloquent. Go
about
ahead,
the old
Bill. Go
days.
for
Anyway,
it. Oh, here comes the
seriously.
cat.
The major fundraiser for the Crippled Children's Trust in those days is what they called a festival. Elks Crippled Children Festival, and they had it all the weekend of July 4th at that time. And in the early days, it was appeared on what was known as Elm Park, which is now a tire office right on Chicago Street there, just south of the depot.
Okay.
And then it moved over to, and then Buck Luby's Tavern was very, very adjacent to that. So that was a good thing for the guys, as they volunteered their services. And then later on, it moved over to what's now known as Scully Park. And one of the big features, one of the biggest money raisers was what they called sunshine bonds. And that is, they sold chances to win an automobile automobile from the various dealers. And they'd rotate around from year to year. Each dealer would furnish a car, and they raised a lot of money with these sunshine bonds. And I remember my dear friend Jack Bushel, it was his job to call the winner, and it's some, 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night, he'd get a hold of somebody and say, "You just won the car." That was a big deal. And then in the park, they had all sorts of games of chance, esoteric as they were, but these were kind of the innocent days. They packed the park, and they made a lot of money. And then, of course, Howard Bushel's place, being where it was on the corner, was very handy for those who were working the stands.
Well, you really started something with that. Now we've got a game of chance on every corner in our town.
Yeah, no kidding. And
Isn't that special?
And they opened up a new place just to gamble. I mean, no other redeeming features as far as I can tell,
Well,
just to gamble.
Somebody told me you have to sell liquor as well.
Oh, I don't know.
Now, there's a drawback.
Pardon?
There's a drawback.
Yeah.
Mike, have you had any unusual experiences since you've been on the trust?
I just came on in 2015. TJ Cosgrove was on the trust before, and when he passed away, they asked me to come in and take his spot. No, the most amazing thing to me has been just the scope of what the trust does now. I had no idea that they donated to things like the walking trail, or the number of people who are repeat clients. Like the child might outgrow one piece of equipment, and they come back and say, "We need a new one," and we get a new one for them. And it's pretty much what they need, we provide.
How did it come to pass that you were able to garner the funds to be so generous to the community above and beyond?
I'll tell you how it happened. We had very, very serious investors who looked down the road, and they were miserly about the expenses. They took care of every youngster that needed anything, but over and above that money didn't go out of that fund. The old-timers looked down the road, and it was to their acumen that business, as usual, they developed a considerable amount of money. And down through the years, the trust officers have been very careful about husbanding that strength and making sure that look here, we're into perpetuity now. And I don't have any idea what your check balance is today, but it's pretty significant, and the community appreciates everything that's done. Well, I did not realize as an old-timer that you guys had expanded into the community with your philanthropic work, which is wonderful.
Well, partly it was due to the fact that we lost our orthopedic surgeon for a while and weren't able to have clinics for a period of time. And I think, I can't say this for a fact, but that was one of the reasons that they expanded, because we have to donate a certain percentage of what we earn on our principal every year by law. And so we had to find other avenues to give money away, which sounds kind of silly, but we did.
Right.
T.J. Cosgrove was known for chasing families down in the aisles of Walmart, asking them if they needed some help and giving them his card and asking them to call and telling them when the next clinic would be.
That's how near and dear
Bill
it was to
Marcotte
his heart.
does much the same thing.
Yeah.
He's passed people and stopped and told them about it. So, but it was partly through necessity, but partly because of the amount of physical responsibility that was done early on, and the fact that the money is carefully invested, that we're able to operate pretty much off of the proceeds from our investment right now. We have some income from bequests. Usually when a member of the Elks passes away, one of the things they may elect is to have memorials made to the Charitable Trust. But beyond that, we don't have to do any fundraisers at the moment.
Well, that's a good thing. We have fundraisers here at WLCN and Viewpoint, and it's called commercials. And without them, we won't operate. So go right ahead, Mr. Ash. I don't know what it is.
You don't have to.
And we're back live in the studios here. The program is Viewpoint on WLCN 96.3, as you might know. You listeners out there, both of you, might want to call Mr. Michael Higgins. I'm proud to say he's been a friend of mine forever, and he's here in the capacity of his assistance with what's known as the Charitable Trust of Lincoln Lodge number 914, and they're doing a lot of, originally, way back, they did what was known as crippled children's work. Now they've expanded their philanthropy into various other areas in the community. Michael, in the old days, as I mentioned Irma, she was a saint. And do you have somebody like that who is a go-between that would between the doctor, and that's what she literally was. She was there as a county nurse, and the doctor would say to her, Mrs. Potter, this boy needs her, this girl needs such and such, and she'd take care of it. Do you have anybody? How does that work?
Actually, our clinic is set up in conjunction with the state organization, the Elks state organization. Let me specify on that again.
Let's keep the politics out of it.
And Bill Block is the head of the Illinois Elks Children's Care Corporation. And I believe that the Lincoln program was so successful that the state adopted it as a statewide program. But the Lincoln program is a standalone operation for the area our lodge covers. But the Illinois Elks Child Care Corporation does essentially the same thing in the rest of the state of Illinois. So if there is someone who has a grandson or a child or needs some assistance that doesn't live in the Lincoln area, then they can certainly contact Bill and he will take care of them through the statewide organization. But he is the one that coordinates the clinics for us now.
So the nice part about it is the recipients of this service, be it the Elks or the Shrine Crippled Children, people are covered here in the state of Illinois by this kind of philanthropy, and it's a marvelous thing to go, to know. A little side issue, Judith Kay and Mike and James, our park out there by the Elks Golf Course, a memorial park. That was originally acquired. Well, of course, it was Chautauqua way back when I was a shote. And Chautauqua, like they all over the country, they kind of died away. And they're that beautiful, beautiful landset with all those gorgeous trees and so forth. And the original Elks Crippled Children Trust, that would be Jack Gordon, Herman Gossett, and Albert Arnold, they were able to acquire that ground from the Chautauqua Association. the purpose of them acquiring it was that they had in mind that they would make a rehab hospital, rehab facility there on those grounds. Time went by, and the state got into this type of philanthropy and work, and it precluded the need for that, so there it sat fallow for people to just enjoy as a park as they do today. And a little history on that is that some of the Elks golf members, and I recall this very vividly, put a lot of pressure on myself and the other committee members to convert that into another 9 holes. And my philosophy was it was acquired for the community, for use by the community. And the other side of it was I was a tree hugger and didn't want to see all those trees cut down, which they'd had to have done. Bottom line is that we were able to withstand that onslaught by some of my dear friends who wouldn't speak to me for a long time. And we saved that from being opened up and sliced away, and they acquired another 9 holes through the generosity of primarily Leroy Allison way back in those days. But every time I drive through that park going out there, I kind of smile to myself and said, "My gosh, there it is." so that's the synopsis. That's the synopsis history of our Chautauqua Park out there.
Now, since the statewide Elks organization is the umbrella company, how do you support the part that Lodge 914 owes? Do you take some from each person's dues, or is it free will offerings? How do you offer up your pennies?
It's a free will offering to the lodge. We don't take anything out of dues for the charitable trust. It operates on its own at this point. It generates enough revenue from our principal that we're able to do everything that we want to do without having to ask for any money from the members. And any donations are, of course, appreciated. But
as you say, bequests.
Bequests
that's a nice thing too.
Are the main source of additional income now.
You said that because it was so successful to have the clinic here in Lincoln, the state eventually adopted that program. Have other states followed Illinois, to your knowledge?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if other states have the same program. As Bill said, a lot of each fraternal organization has their own identity, or their specific charity that they do, and in many cases each state lodge organization, Elks organization, has their own. For example, the Illinois Elks do the Easter Bunny program every year, and every lodge in Illinois is required to do the Easter Bunny program because that's one of their statewide operations. And
what does the Easter Bunny do?
I might add, I'm looking at the Lincoln's favorite Easter Bunny.
One of Lincoln's. There's 3 of us now.
Well, your ears aren't that big.
They actually dress in Easter Bunny costumes.
Do you really?
Yes.
And where do you go when you're Peter Rabbit?
Well, in his case, he goes to KC's.
And Old Joe's.
And Old Joe's.
Standing room only.
No, we visit.
What does that program involve?
We go to, in Lincoln, we visit the 5 area nursing homes in our district. And we go around, visit all the residents. We pass out Easter bananas, which are very popular because you can't pass out candy.
No.
And oranges and apples are a little harder to eat, but everyone recognizes the bananas and loves them immediately. So we pass out Easter bananas. And the ladies of the Emblem Club have been going with us for years, and recently they have added a little music music to the whole festivities. So,
And how do they provide their music? Do they bring an accordion or do they bring a
oh no, they
CD?
just bring in their vocal cords and sing.
Really?
Yes, we're serenaded up and down the halls and through the entire nursing home in some cases.
Not
By the way,
too many weeks ago, we had the Dennises on, and they do an awful lot of volunteering at Christian nursing homes. And they really got into it. They enjoy visiting with the people. I imagine you find that a good day when
Yes.
it's over,
Yes.
don't you?
Yeah, it's as much fun being in the costume as it is being out of the costume, because when you're in the costume, you can't talk to anyone because you have this giant head on. And
Oh, rabbits don't
so-
talk anyway.
Rabbits don't talk anyway, but it would be
Have to
very
keep
hard.
in character.
It's hard for people to understand you when you try to talk in that costume. So
Yeah.
we just
See,
decided the
Mike
bunny
was an
doesn't talk.
engineer, graduate engineer, but he has theater in his blood. And in fact, just kind of go over to Indiana just a minute in Warsaw. But he and Carolyn, his wife, always sing at the annual Elks Memorial Service. They do a very fine job, too, by the way. Let's go over to Warsaw, Indiana, just a minute. Tell us a little bit about your theater experience over there, and what do you do, Mike?
Well, I'm the production manager at the Wagon Wheel Theater in Warsaw, Indiana, and it's the theater
A
and I.
long-standing institution.
Yes, very long-standing. The theater and I are the same age.
Is that right?
That tells you how long it's been around.
And did you
they
start
are
when it
old.
opened?
No, I didn't. I was a little too young to be hired when it opened. But in 1984, I found myself doing as much theater on the side as I was working full-time. And a friend of mine was the director at the time, and he said, if you are interested in looking into it as a profession, we'd be happy to hire you. Well, be happy to hire you to work a summer stock backstage job is kind of like giving you an extra seat on the rowing galley.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a lot of work. It's a long schedule, a lot of work, but I've been doing it off and on. I did it from 84 through 93, and then I came back in 93 and have been there ever since. But
Well, if it was summer stock and they hired you full-time, I don't understand enough about theater to imagine what you did when it wasn't summer.
oh well.
Well, there's
Full-time
no business like
during
show
the summer.
business.
Full-time during the summer, but it was seasonal.
Okay.
It still is seasonal. The theater now has moved to a nonprofit status. They managed to survive for 58 years as a, quote, for-profit theater, although there was never much profit to be made. But now they've moved to nonprofit. We have a full-time director, full-time technical director, and musical director that live there year-round. And they've added 4 what they call youth theater programs. 2 of them are cast with grade school and junior high kids. The other 2 are cast with high school kids. They do 2 community theater performances. The area symphony is now under the umbrella of the theater organization. And then our bread and butter is still the summer season and the Christmas show. We do a 6-show summer season, 5 musicals, 1 play, and then we do an encore show where we do something a little more R-rated than we could put into the regular season, and then we do a Christmas show.
By the way, this is in the round, which is very interesting.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it's a very interesting concept. I've been there once. A bunch of us went over one time, and Mike was a very gracious host, and we really enjoyed our couple of days over there. And they put on this production in the round, and I thought it was exceptionally well done.
Yeah.
It's a different approach to theater.
It is. And I've been doing it so long, when I designed for a standard proscenium theater where the audience sits on one side, I have to kind of sit back and mentally refocus that
Sure.
I actually have to add walls to this thing.
Yeah.
People don't have to look in all directions, they only look out. But no, I've been doing that for 28 years.
That was an interesting job.
He didn't anticipate that when he was studying engineering either at Northwestern.
No.
Well, plans are what you make while you're waiting for life to happen, right?
That's true.
All right, back to our Elks Charitable Trust and the philanthropy that takes care of youngsters who are, for want of a better word, challenged, physically challenged. What is the workload, the caseload that you have on an average day when you see patients?
Usually there's between 3 and 5 that come in. There's not...
That's interesting. That's not very many.
There's not very many.
In the old days, boy, we used to see a lot of them.
Yeah. And there's been times where there have just been 1 or 2 that come, but, for everyone that comes, it's worth doing it. It's worth having the clinic.
But it must expand beyond the physical challenge, because you mentioned a little bit ago the iPads that are adaptable for kids who need them adapted.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's that was from an outside request from folks at Logan Mason Rehab.
Oh.
That some of their kids needed some iPads to help them. And that being in the scope of what we were doing, it wasn't directly associated with anything that came from the clinic.
Not physically challenged, but...
right.
Well, that was a part of what you have now evolved into a significant amount of community philanthropy as opposed to directing just taking care of challenged youngsters.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a great thing.
Well, let me give you the phone number while I'm thinking of it, before I forget it.
Really, yeah, because, you were saying that you don't have a large attendance.
That's right.
But I bet there are a couple more kids out there who Bill hasn't run into in Walmart who might need some help.
That's right. So all you need to do is call, this is the Springfield Elks number. It's 217-483-3020. 483-3020, and you will more than likely be speaking to Bill Block, who is the chairman of the State Children's Care Corporation, the Elks State Children's Care Corporation. And he will schedule you in. The next clinic is the 4th of April, and they usually try to start at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And Dr. Borowicki would be the attending physician, and if he cannot make it, then his physician's assistant, David Purvis, will be there.
Michael, it occurs to me as I sit here that perhaps we're doing it in a way right here this morning, but the other media ought to know a little bit more about this and give you a little write-up in the electronic and the print media as a little matter of PR, and perhaps move somebody to think in terms of bequest and so forth, or somebody looking for a tax write-off. Lord knows there's a good spot. Of course, the tax season is too late for this year, but...
it wouldn't hurt to toot your horn a little bit either.
That's true.
After all, I think that there are any number of people who think that all you do out there is golf. Oh, and some swim.
Yeah. Well, this is a little known philanthropy. The Shrine hospitals down through the years have had good PR down forever, and rightly so. And goodness knows, and with the advantage of television, you can see these youngsters directly, and I'm picturing 2 or 3 of them in my mind right now that we all see. They get good PR on television. Maybe we ought to see about the local television and do a little feature on that. And I know just who to call. So if you're interested in that, we'll follow through on that.
Actually, Bill knows just who for any situation.
I suspect that's true.
It is. Would I lie to you?
Well, yes, if it was going to make her feel better. Before we close off this, do you have anything you'd like to wrap up with, Mr. Higgins?
No, I give the names of the people on the committee again: Marcia Warner, Merlin Horath, myself, Mike Higgins, Bill Marcotte, and Dave Campbell.
That's a very good committee.
And
Really.
if you have any questions or have anyone that you think might need some assistance, feel free to give any of us a call. We'd be more than happy to talk to you.
I know two people would be extremely proud we had Mike sitting here today.
Yes.
And that's his mother and father. They were two noble people. They were just great community citizens. And I'm not trying to make you pull your chain a little bit, Mike, but you had to be my age and know them and know what they meant to their community. And they say, and I can see his mother dancing down that boardwalk at the old Lincoln Lakes area, all heads turned. They were. I'm glad to say I had some great friends there. So we always try to close with some comment that has something to do with the subject matter of the day, and this has to do with disabilities. As opposed, we can't call it crippled children. God knows.
No.
And I think it's really appropriate. And it's the real. And when I tell you who said this, it was the skater Scott Hamilton.
Oh.
Who was quite a guy with a lot of problems. The real disability in life is a bad attitude. Thank you for Viewpoint. Thank you, Mike Higgins, very much. We appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.